Welcome to another exciting episode of Esoterica, the podcast. I'm Chris Schultz.
I'm Aaron Christian.
And thanks for joining us tonight. Make sure to check out our Facebook page, Esoterica, the podcast, as well as the group for hopefully our fans to interact with us. And check out our Instagram, Esoterica, the podcast.
We appreciate all of your support so far and all of the comments and feedback you've been giving us and the listens and the likes and the follows, whatever. We really appreciate it, and we hope to continue that going forward. And we're available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Breaker, and whatever you're listening to this on right now. So please keep doing so. We really appreciate it.
And please spread the word. Word of mouth is the best tool in getting us out there. So I'm still got this throat thing going on.
Gutter lane issue.
I got my compromised gutter lane. So before we do anything else, I think we should engage in our inadvertent tradition of testing out a difficult soda.
Difficult soda. I appreciate that we use different names for this segment every time. We have indie soda, inadvertent tradition.
Now,
difficult soda.
Building off our last episode, difficult soda.
Yes.
So Aaron actually picked up the soda tonight. So what do you got for us?
We are drinking Moxie. Now, Moxie is, as it says in the bottle, distinctively different. And from what I understand, it's been around as long as everything else. I think most people, at least in the Northeast, know of Moxie. My great-grandfather, I guess, loved Moxie. I think we both had this before. And I know I don't like it, but I haven't had it in a while. So
no, I know that I don't like
it. It's been a while, so I'm willing to give it another shot because this is one of those drinks that I really want to like. Mainly because I just want attention.
Well, one of the things, this is something I would call an acquired taste.
Yeah.
And the thing about an acquired taste is you acquire it. And it's usually by forcing yourself to drink it or eat it numerous times before you finally decide, I'm just going to like this because otherwise I'm torturing myself.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, I was looking real quick, and I'm going to cough. It appears that Moxie was created in 1876 in Lowell, Massachusetts. So it's a local boy.
Yeah, and I think it's manufactured now in Maine or New Hampshire is where they do it primarily.
It's flavored with gentian root extract, an extremely bitter substance commonly used in herbal medicine. So, perhaps this will help soothe my ruffled gutter lane.
Yeah. Does it say, you reading it off the Wikipedia page?
Yes.
Does it say what the medicinal purposes used to be? Because I think there's something interesting in there that is worth a quick discussion on.
So, it claims it's especially effective against paralysis, softening of the brain.
That's the one. Softening of the brain. Isn't the brain already soft?
It is kind of soft.
It is.
Is that do you think it's a literal softening of the brain or a figurative thing?
I think it's literal. I think that it's hyperlinked too, and it discusses something that I did not go to medical school for.
Cerebral softening, also known as encephalomachia, is a localized softening of the substance of the brain due to bleeding or inflammation.
Well, I don't think Moxie does that anymore.
Oh, it can occur in your circle of Willis.
Well, wow. You're popular over there. Well, with that being said, I'm ready to give this a shot. I don't know about you.
Yeah, let's dive in. And my brain is not softening, but let's hope it cures.
All right, now let's see if we can get a nice hiss when we do this.
1, 2, 3. Ooh, that was satisfying.
Oh, yeah. The spike on that.
Nice. It's got a interesting bouquet.
I actually really like the smell of it.
I do like the smell.
I've always liked the Moxie smell. Can you hear me?
Bold, complex flavor.
It's really good on the going down. It's afterwards. It's not bad. It's different, distinctively, as it says in the can.
Now, I know there's this argument, especially among beer fans, about the difference between a bottle and a can. I've had Moxie before in a plastic bottle, and there is definitely I'm finding a difference in taste in the can.
For better or for worse?
I want to say for better. Now that I've said that, I've got a little more of an aftertaste with it, but I think I prefer it in the can.
Mm.
I like it.
Yeah, I think I've only had it in a can. I don't. Do they still make it? I think they still make it in a bottle too, like a glass bottle.
Like a glass bottle. I feel like it'd be really good in a glass bottle.
You know, I like it.
Yeah, it's growing on me.
It is. I mean, the last time I had that, I was probably 13.
Have I seen you wearing a Moxie T-shirt?
Moxie is a part of my brand.
Ah.
No, well, it's one of those things that you just see this random soda you've never seen before, and everyone says tastes horrible. And if you wear the T-shirt, everyone asks you about it. So, fun fact now, anyone who's asked me, do you like Moxie? Now I do.
You can say you do. I would love to, at some point, do a whole episode where we talk about OK Soda, which was a whole thing that happened, long before you were born, to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi. Soda drinker.
Oh, I got it. I just was dying over here.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, noted soda drinker. Because, he lived on Tatooine all those years.
Oh, yes.
It's dry. One time somebody asked me, in all seriousness, they came over and it was like, look how much Obi-Wan has aged between episodes 3 and 4. They're twin sons of Tatooine.
Oh, yeah.
That'd wreck you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's 19, 20 years, right? So.
Yeah, but if you're looking at Ewan McGregor to Alec Guinness, like that is, seems like some severe aging, but dude's been out in the twin sons of Tatooine for 20 years. He's going to age.
Yeah. I mean, you look a lot older than me for being 20 years apart.
I'd like to think I'm not quite Obi-Wan status yet, but I'm getting there.
Well, I hope it would be a compliment to call you Obi-Wan.
Aaron, your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough. Okay, so that's Moxie Soda.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay, before we go any further, I want to take a minute to talk about the awesome folks at Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way. In fact, it's the way that we make a podcast. Let me explain.
It's free.
There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
And you can make money from your podcast. Best part, no minimum listenership.
Ooh. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
It's so cool. We found the service. We started using it. We're making podcasts.
Yeah, making podcasts, making money, having a good time.
So listen, you want to get you out there. You want to be heard. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you.
So I want to take a minute to talk about something that's been getting under my skin for some time.
Do tell.
Facebook groups, and particularly town groups. Now, I'm not even going to complain about the fact that people call it a page, and it's not a page, it's a group.
Yes.
That's semantics. But Facebook groups are just like the armpit of society. The stuff that goes on. People are so lazy and don't like to think for themselves. Do you recall when all the controversy was coming in about the Russians meddling with the election?
Yeah.
There was a lot of fake news. There was a lot of actual fake news. Russians had posted fake news articles on Facebook, and I always thought to myself, how could somebody fall for something that's obviously not true? Then if you spend any time on a town page or group, because it's the same no matter where you live,
Right.
you understand that if you say the sky's purple, they're going to run out of their house and look. Like these people, normally intelligent people, turn into idiots on Facebook. Does this bother you too? Are you seeing this, or is it just me?
No, I see the same thing. I honestly didn't know until recently that other towns other than ours had Facebook pages too, or groups.
Yeah,
most of
like
them have
every
Facebook
town.
pages, but it's because everyone calls it that. I didn't realize that was a common thread amongst groups, though, that was happening.
Some of them are terrible. I know I had an occasion to have a conversation with the police chief in Whitman, and they were all the cops there were laughing about the crap that goes on the Whitman page. You know, like they're aware of it, and nothing criminal, but it's just such a cesspool. One thing that really drives me crazy. All right, so Facebook has a feature where if you're looking for recommendations, let's say you need a new oil company to deliver oil, you ask for recommendations, and people can recommend them, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that because it's a good idea to get some feedback. Contractor, you don't know anything about contractors.
Yeah.
I one time hired a guy who was a drunk and hid in my shed all day. It was a waste of money, but I didn't know any better. But then people ask questions for really stupid stuff. What time does Dunkin' Donuts open up?
Yeah, no, that's not the type of question you need to be asking on that town page.
That's on Facebook. Yeah, you know where you can get the answer to that? Google.
Yeah.
Google it. It endlessly frustrates me.
And not to say that there aren't like good people, like there are good resources to use these groups for. I've shared information on there, and it's good to get information out to people, but it's certain people don't understand that there are other resources to get the answer faster than just asking the group, the entire town, what they.
Yeah,
I think you basically have summed up what my point was, trying to re-summarize what you said.
Don't ask the hive mind, number one, because you're going to get bad information from somebody.
Right.
And number two, why wouldn't you just Google that?
Right. And I feel like if I'm asking when a business is going to open, if I throw out there like, hey, what time does Dairy Queen open? And someone says 8:30, but another person says 9 o'clock, what the heck am I supposed to
make of that? Yeah. And it shows a laziness in thinking that I think is pandemic in our society these days. For example, because I just happen to be on the town group right now, you posted about a pasta dinner fundraiser that you're having for your summit project having to do with Abington's historic homes. So I don't want to take a deep dive into that, but the first comment that someone makes, we actually have the third oldest hose in town. So great, you have an old hose. I think she means house.
Yeah.
But, people don't check their typos. And haven't heard about this until now. You're doing a fundraiser for this project.
Right. I mean, I have my own thoughts on that I don't want to dive too deep into on here. But there are other
you don't
examples.
Want to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, it's my project, and I'm happy to help people. At the same time, though, that type of that could have been a direct message to me too. Like, hey, I have this. How do I participate in the project? It is, I assume, what they were jumping for, and I really hope that they do. But again, it's the way that people are just very careless on that page about reading and understanding the context of certain things that are being posted, the information that's being shared.
One of the things that I find endlessly frustrating is I run a number of pages, as I'm sure you do as well. One is in an official capacity for a town office.
Yeah.
And people think that by complaining on a Facebook town group, they're going to get things accomplished. Like, rather than actually contact the people at town hall that are in charge of things officially, you're going to bitch about it.
Right.
And with a bunch of other malcontents and expect results. That's not how it works, folks.
So I received, because we're both in a similar official capacity involved in the town that way, and I received a message from someone in New Hampshire saying that there was some chemical issue with the water and whatever, and I'm like, I appreciate your concern, but you need to talk to your local authorities about that. You should probably call your board of health, not mine. And they're like, well, it was sent to your town too. And when I brought it up to the health agent, he had no clue what I was talking about. So it's just one of those things out of nowhere, to bring something like that up.
Yeah.
Facebook is a void sometimes of just knowledge that gets lost.
Yeah. I asked for recommendations on the Life in Abington page a while ago because I had to have this exhaust work done on my truck. And, I'm on, and I'm on an Abington town page for our town, and I said, can anyone recommend a local repair shop that's good at doing exhaust? I cannot tell you how many people recommended shops in Quincy. Not local.
Right.
I mean, it's within 10 miles perhaps, but I'm looking for something here in town. So that was annoying.
I think the best thing that you showed me, I think, is lmgtfy.com. Let me Google that for you.com. And I've seen you personally post that on some people's threads, and I want to give you a big high five from across the room for that.
Yeah, it's a more passive-aggressive way of calling people out, because that's the thing. You know, and when you're in these town groups, it doesn't accomplish anything to be an ass and call people out, number one. At the end of the day, you don't get anything out of that. Number two, if you have to live and work with these people, it also doesn't do you any good to do that. But sometimes you got to call people out for their foolishness.
Absolutely.
The other thing that drives me crazy, before we finish beating this dead horse, is the humble brag. And I see this all the time. Is there anywhere in town where I can donate expensive clothing to poor people that need them because I'm cleaning out my closet? Mm-hmm. Well, good for you. You got some nice clothes. You shop at Talbot's and you're getting rid of it. Just friggin' stick it in one of the 100 boxes around town that take clothes donations. And they act like they're, sincerely, I'm looking for information, but they're like, I'm such a good person.
I know, is there anywhere I could come and help out on Christmas to families in need? And like, I am all for people doing that, but I think, and to an extent, that's a recommendation, but it's all on how you word it. It's like you are just trying to look good. For what I don't know, like, you know, just be a good person. People will respect you, and you don't have to announce it. I feel like there are many things that if you need to announce it, then you're not deserving of being respected for those things.
Yeah. So I hate to keep. This will be the second time now that I reference a shamed comedian, but Louis C.K. had a great bit about how one time he was on an airplane and he was in first class and he saw a serviceman come in and he thought about giving up his seat, but he didn't. But he was proud of himself for thinking of it. And I feel like there's the same sort of thing going on there, that they're looking for validation for what a good person they are.
Yeah.
And you know what? Eat shit. To be honest.
Well, while we're on the whole Google topic, I don't know how this is going to segue necessarily to this, but it was something I found interesting, and I did some Googling into it. I think that's kind of where I got to it. But at work today, I don't know if you heard it, but on the radio, they were talking about how in movies, only the good guys in movies will use iPhones.
Yes, so shout out to WATD.
95.9 WATD.
Marshfield. Yeah, they were, Rob and Lisa were talking about it this morning. Apparently, it's something that it's a Apple policy that bad guys aren't allowed to be using iPhones. It was an interview, I believe, with Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, Star Wars Episode 8 director?
Yep, which they referenced, and I thought that was odd because guess what? There are none of in Star Wars.
Mm. And actually, I just happened to, while we were talking about, pull up this article about it, and he said that in an interview with Vanity Fair, which is actually, this is the video that is here, which we can put a link up to about as well. But it says that Apple won't let the bad guys in movies use iPhones. They let you use iPhones, but it's very pivotal that if you're ever watching a mystery movie, that a bad guy cannot have them on the camera. And Apple's really focused on their image, like 99.9% of the time, except for when they're, outsourcing most of their stuff out of the country to have people who work in sweatshops make those things. But that's something else.
I know BSA has a similar policy with the uniform.
Yeah.
To use an official...
BSA is Boy Scouts of America, by the way.
Yes. To use an official Boy Scout uniform in a movie, you have to get clearance, and they're very protective of the brand. I'm going to cough.
Yeah, and I think it's fair for a business to be protective of their brand to an extent.
But I feel like I wouldn't even notice if a bad guy, like now I'm going to notice that bad
Right.
guys aren't using iPhones.
Well, and I think that not noticing also, there's some sort of psychology behind it that you'll associate bad things with an iPhone if you see it that way. I assume is the psychology behind it. And it's interesting. It's very interesting.
I'm going to have to pay closer attention to movies and bad guys and what sort of device they're texting on.
So thank you to Rob and Lisa this morning for popping that out to us.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that. So, guys, we're shouting out for you. Why don't you shout out for Esoterica the podcast?
So in our last episode, we said that we were going to change things up a little bit. And this week, I picked the album that we are going to be reviewing. And when I announced it on our last episode, a few people checked out what the album was going to be ahead of time. And they went, "Oh, Aaron, that's not esoteric at all." And I'm here to argue that to an extent it is.
So let's hear your argument.
So, first off, we're listening today. We are listening to Sports by Modern Baseball. Just a little background before I get into exactly what my argument is. Modern Baseball is a rock band from Philadelphia. They started in 2011 by Brendan Lukens and Jake Ewald. They were high school friends and they went off to college together. They went to college close to each other. And they were an acoustic duo. They wrote a few songs together, and that's when they wrote Sports, their first album. Sports in my life has been really important. It's been really important in helping me define kind of who I am and a lot of things that I feel about myself. Somebody else I know has felt the same way, so it's been really interesting. And the reason why I wanted to review it is because I'm interested to see how your reaction is to the kind of concepts that this album talks about from a different generation. Because a lot of the things that they talk about, and a lot of the feelings they talk about, I'm sure everyone has felt one way or another. But it's really focused in this millennial type of generation that there's a lot of more hypersensitivity around things and a lot more emotional and mental health issues that I think are more prevalent now. So
People are talking about them.
Yeah, I think that's where I want. So I'm interested to see generationally what if there's any gap or if there's any difference on the view of that. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. How does esoteric fall into place? Well, I think we have a fairly broad. Don't play this video. It might play a video. There we go. We have a very broad definition, kind of what we talk about on this podcast, and that's to have offbeat discussions as well as unusual discussions. That's in our description.
Yep.
So this band, to an extent, does things that are offbeat. A lot of their singing isn't on key, and a lot of the things that they do aren't in time, and that's also unusual. They have a lot of nasal vocals. It's really rooted in internet culture, so there's a whole song that's devoted to talking to somebody on Twitter, and yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. It's different in terms of, instead of just talking about it, it talks a lot about how you feel, but it brings in a lot of the influence of what outside factors are making you feel that way. So we talk about Twitter, we talk about just walking into some party or somebody's house and you see something you don't like and you get uncomfortable, and that's how you break down and close down. And I think for me it's really personal. And it's just left enough of mainstream that I think to an extent you could argue that it's esoteric.
I feel you. I'm looking at Merriam-Webster, and excuse me. I know a lot of times when I'm defining a word, it's not always the A or the B definition that gets at the heart of what I'm driving at. So if you look at the definition of esoteric, designed for or understood by the specially initiated alone, which this would not fall into that.
Yeah.
Requiring or exhibiting knowledge that is restricted to a small group, limited to a small circle. The third definition, which I really like, is of special, rare, or unusual interest. And I think that's more where the heart of what we're doing lies.
Right.
I know I've said this in relation to music that speaks to me personally is when you're into a band or a musician that is off the beaten track and not well known. It's very personal. You kind of feel like you own that music.
Right. When
So-
other people know about modern baseball to an extent, it makes me almost uncomfortable.
Yes, so you have that experience too. Like you
Yeah.
want to share it to some extent so that you can
Yeah.
talk with someone about it, but you feel like it's yours and it's sort of private.
Right. And for me to do this episode and talk about this in this episode, it means a lot for me because sharing this album with you guys is sharing a lot of me with you guys. And it didn't become as big a part of my life until I entered college. And I realized that a lot of the things that they were experiencing, they're my age when they were experiencing them. And they're writing about certain feelings that they have. And this band is on hiatus right now because they're experiencing these problems so overwhelmingly that they just need some time off. So this is modern baseball. And I am genuinely really excited to share this with everyone. And
I'm excited to listen to it, to peel back the layers of that beautiful onion called Aaron Christian.
and I think this is probably one of the most off the beaten path bands that I listen to that's not a local thing, which we could do at some point. I have plenty of local friends that might want to come and talk. So,
Good Lord, we could play you at some point because.
whoa, one step at a time.
So, having said that, bring me into what's the name of this album?
Sports by Modern
Sports
Baseball.
by
So
Modern Baseball.
we'll jump into the first track, Redo, on Sports by Modern Baseball.
I want a complete redo, maybe change my name. Report the losses, grab the claim. It's a shame, it's such a shame. We're pissing away our time, cause we're pissing away these beers. No monumental moment ever came from saying.
My first thought hearing that is they remind me to a certain degree of Neutral Milk Hotel.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. That they have very similar, a very similar sound.
Yeah, I mean, the Neutral Milk Hotel's a whole other story. They get some stuff going on in their imagery, but definitely the sound of it. I liked it. As a first track, like I want to hear more of the album.
And so this song and another one we'll get to later are one of the most important songs to me on the album. And what I like about it and what really spoke to me a lot and made me want to cover it was a lot about how the song is talking about how you try to forget the things that make you upset and the things that make you nervous, and you just want to redo all those times that you felt that way. That's why it's called Redo. So fun fact, I also did a cover of it. It's out on Spotify too. So
Oh, nice.
just because it spoke so much to me. So that one's really important to me. Going forward after that is Tears Over Beers. This one, I like all the songs on this album.
I would hope.
So I'm a little biased, and this is more to talk about it, if anything. But let's listen to Tears Over Beers.
Alrighty.
That girl who's next to me.
Wait, right next to. Oh
She
god.
found herself bored to tears. She realized if she wanted conversation, she's out of luck for 3 more years.
So I'm getting the feeling, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that this is biographical songs.
Yeah, to an extent. I have a feeling that when they write these things, these are all things that have either happened to them or is skewed to an extent to fit a story better. Like on a different album, for example, there's like one of the songs opens up with like you're here and you're making out with this other guy on the couch and stuff like that, and then I get super uncomfortable, and like that's kind of what it turns into. So yeah, this is very biographical, and that yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a convoluted way to answer your question.
kind of what I'm getting out of this, and I've had this feeling before where there's a girl you kind of like, and you listen to her put herself down and not value herself.
Yeah.
And then some piece of shit guy smiles at her, and like that's her world. Well, you're sitting there like the
Yeah.
perfect person for her, and she doesn't even see it.
Yeah,
That never happened to me, I swear to God.
Yeah, and there's a line, and I can't remember what it is, even though we just listened to it. But it's like, her face starts to shine when that meathead behind me is grinning as he's checking her out. That whole thing. So I think that's a really good way of analyzing it.
I'm liking this so far.
The next track is The Weeknd, and everyone I've shown The Weeknd really likes it. Not to say that you have to, but it's an interesting song. It's got a really cool solo at the end. So yeah, let's take a listen to The Weeknd.
Most of my old friends I can only stand for the weekend, but that doesn't apply here. Doesn't apply here. The day started with a bloody trip.
I like that track.
I don't know what I was gonna say.
Most of my old friends I can only stand for the weekend. Like, I totally get that.
Yeah, and what I didn't actually realize it as much until I started really looking at the lyrics, like you suggested to do. Because I've always listened to the song and I've interpreted it a specific way, but looking at it like this way, it's he really likes a girl, and he tries to compose himself in a way that he doesn't seem like he's like super head over heels with her, but that's obviously the case. So he likes a girl, and he's like, most of my friends I can only stand for a short amount of time, but like it's different with you. Like, that doesn't apply here. And I thought it was really, really interesting way of doing it, saying something that people have said a lot.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you were saying earlier about the generational differences and the stuff going on, it's like these are universal experiences seen through a different lens.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of cool because I remember who I was when I was that age, but I am further away from that now than I've ever been. It's making me wistful.
So our next song on here is, so you had difficulty trying to pronounce it. It's pronounced Chloe, but it is in format of a Twitter handle. So it's at CHL03K.
So what's the K? Because now that you said that, I can get at Chloe.
Yeah.
Is it Chloe K?
I have always taken it as Chloe K.
Okay.
I haven't looked too deep into it to figure out who Chloe is or anything like that. So I'd be interested to know if there actually is a specific Chloe, or if, similar to a song that my band wrote, where the first name was Julie, that Chloe or Julie in my example could be anybody, and that's just the name they're using.
Random thought, but if that's someone's actual Twitter handle, that's like that song, Jenny, Don't Lose My Number.
8675309,
which was somebody's phone number. They read that off a bathroom wall, but
yeah.
Wow, that's a generational difference there. That's cool.
Well, while we're listening to it, I'll take a look on Twitter, see what we can pull up.
Cool.
So in the meantime, let's listen to Chloe by Modern Baseball.
I'd rather spend my evening talking to Chloe on Twitter than having you come over, so it'll be like old times. But I know that you don't give a fuck, 'cause you're knee deep in your iPhone. But now that you saw my tweets...
Now that, to me, really seemed to have a Neutral Milk Hotel feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The pauses in there have always been my favorite, because it's kind of like Blackbird, where Blackbird builds you up to this anticipation towards the end of the song, and then it kind of stops and then continues on. So this song kind of does a similar thing, where just out of the blue it has these pauses. I think it's really effective.
It is, and it made me think of, I'm not a musician. I don't play an instrument, but I've always wanted to. And I took piano lessons when I was young, and I remember one of the few things that stuck with me was my piano teacher talking about the use of silence in a song and how that can be more effective at a million notes if you use it well. And it was well used there.
So I looked up at CHL03K on Twitter, and I'm not finding anybody with that actual username. There's somebody who, as their name, they have as at CHL03K. But in his handle is something else. But there's nobody. Oh, there it is. Okay, there is somebody. Her name's Ren. That's it. So, but they joined after the song came out. So,
I was going to say that would beg the question about whether they chose the handle because they were a fan of the song or...
Right. So, I don't know. Maybe at the time, things could have been different. I don't know if it's just me. I feel like Twitter was one of those things where it was popular for a while, then it went super unpopular to have a Twitter, and then all of a sudden Twitter's popular again. Or is it just me?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But that's beside the point. So yeah, I'd rather spend my evening talking to Chloe on Twitter. That's what I got from that song. And not to talk about this forever. I don't want to spend a ton more time analyzing songs now because it's something that I'm familiar with. But what's interesting about that track too is the generational difference. It's how I'd rather spend my time sitting at home, like enclosed in myself, talking to somebody else than doing anything else. You know? I mean, I guess it's a different way that maybe some sort of depression or social anxiety is involved from what it used to be at a different point in time. So, moving on, we have Hours Outside in the Snow. Let's take a listen.
All right.
And I'll toss and turn until the early morning, happily ignoring that my blue jeans didn't do a fucking thing for me. Against this cold, sober or not, I locked everything you sent me. 'Cause what's better than seeing?
Some great lines in this song.
This song has a lot of really good detail in it.
Is there a lot to unpack here?
There's a lot to unpack here.
Nice. I like unpacking.
Something I always thought was cool is like I spent all of Christmas Eve fake angry at you. Christmas Eve is a very specific time to be talking about. So this is obviously a personal experience that Brendan is experiencing.
I can't get over this line. Happily ignoring that my blue jeans didn't do a fucking thing for me against this cold. Because everybody knows that feeling.
Yeah.
Like you have the warmest jacket in the world, you got your gloves on, but your legs are friggin'
I
freezing
know.
because they're not doing anything. You need fleece-lined pants, yo.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that was a random
No,
aside,
but you get it, everyone knows that feeling. So, fun fact, and you pointed this out off mic, at the end of the song it says, to Erin, please read later, because I don't think I have the heart to let you read this now. But if I had the heart, you know that I know better. This isn't how you say aloud. Don't let me go back. That's the last line. So that's the whole end of the song. Those are the last few lyrics. This song is about Brendan, the lead singer, his actual first crush ever, who he writes about frequently. There's an article about it that's linked to in this thing that I'm reading.
First girl, first car.
Yeah.
It's hard to get over.
But he got friend zoned. There's another song off of the demos that they call Best Friends. So, this Erin is the crush in this. You hear her voicemail at the end of it and stuff like that. So, this whole it's a similar concept that people have written about for a really long time, love and especially first love. But it's in such a completely different way. It's a very specific example of how he experiences it. And I think that that's really interesting because instead of just writing about, oh, you hurt me and this hurts bad, like this is every single feeling he felt on a specific winter day. And that's what's really cool.
He captures a moment. It's like I was going to say a Polaroid, but that's an outdated term. It's like a picture. It's a snapshot of a moment.
Right. Well, speaking of snapshot, the next song is called I Think You Were in My Profile Picture Once.
Ooh.
Which, again, is very specific to this digital age kind of different way of looking at things. So why don't we take a listen? I think it's relatively short to I Think You Were in My Profile Picture Once.
I heard most things break by the ends of these types of nights, so I'll force upon every word I brushed up on, since knowing we won't speak like this again. You've got a certain who knows why.
That was a sad song.
Very sad. Very sad. And again, and this is the thing I focus on, the illusions that they use to get to the point of the sadness they're trying to talk about. This song, I assume you pick up on kind of what it was about, but a profile picture is just something you show off to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So this song is, you were in my profile picture once, so you're intentionally stopping for that person from being in your profile picture. So you're letting something intentionally die. You don't even remember that thing that you were so proud of anymore. You know, you're just letting it go away. And it's an interesting illusion doing so. Reading here just a little bit of like background on the song. They're saying goodbye to someone who means a lot to them. It takes place at a party, which maybe to celebrate a graduation from high school or something, or a going away party for the girl in the song. But it's just the guitar tones and the brevity of the song emphasize the sense of closure and departure. So that's what somebody was writing about, what they think about this song. And I agree a lot. I think that there's a lot of the dynamic stuff that they do is really emphatic. And yeah.
But broken, so it's not a happy closure.
No, it's not. And they're not afraid to explore the fact that like not all things end happy. And it's really interesting.
So you mentioned earlier that the band's on hiatus for mental health reasons.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a nice way of putting it.
Right. I think there's a specific so the Brendan Lukens, who's the guy who's the lead singer in this song, said he opted to stay home for focus on mental and physical well-being. So they're taking a break to protect their mental health and friendships, essentially.
I always I think that's one of the reasons why, and I'm not saying that this is difficult or crappy music. It's not. But one of the reasons I like some of the odd things I do is this sort of when people find a way to express themselves emotionally, whatever medium that takes place through. It's fascinating to me to hear that. Like, it might not be a happy song that uplifts you, but I enjoy this peek into someone's soul.
Right. And you learn a lot about somebody by hearing the way that they think about things. And again, it's like knowing that somebody else has gone through those things is what makes me feel really good about knowing this band and not wanting to share with anybody else because they get it, and I know that they get it, and I don't want anyone else to get it too. Yeah, it's a weird, cagey way of looking at it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So the next song is Redone. It's kind of a reprise on Redo, but it's in a different key and stuff. So let's take a listen to it. It's interesting.
But I know how you get from time to time. We'll do this and that, travel the map, and maybe just for a while. I thought you were my redo.
So what I'm reading out of this song is that we've got a guy who, in the flesh, talking to a girl, cannot communicate, but can do it through song.
Yes.
Because he's overthinking, which I totally get.
Yeah.
Like, been there, done that. Not that I ever, wrote songs that eloquently express myself. But.
Right. But I feel like many people can communicate what they're feeling about a certain situation in somewhere other than in that situation. Like, that's why hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah. Why are we such messed up creatures, dude?
Oh. And that's why I feel bad for Brendan, because he's got all these feelings, and he's a super nice guy, except he didn't answer my email reaching out to this, but that's not his fault. And, all these things are happening to him and such. So it's really an interesting, like we said before, look into how somebody works.
Maybe you shouldn't be allowed to love someone until you're whole yourself because you love so hard. Does that make any sense?
That makes total sense. A lot of people put others before themselves so much that they don't focus on themselves. And then when they don't get to the point where they get what they want necessarily, then they just completely crack. And it's heartbreaking.
And related, unrelated, I'll spend an hour vacuuming the floor at work, but you'd be hard pressed to get me to do shit at home. I'm relating that to relationships with people. But
right.
I think there's a similar dynamic at the heart of that.
So this next song is called Cook. And Cook has always been really important to me. And I can discuss a little bit kind of what it means to me later. But let's take a listen to Cook by Modern Baseball.
All right.
I'm circling the drain with all my problems in hand. Well, I've got a pretty good hand, I'd say, but these new caskets crack the same. The first few
So, all right, I'm going to say it again. My favorite line. There's a lot to unpack here.
And like I said before, this is another song that just means a lot to me. He talks about, I'm circling the drain. The first few stones are the worst. We're all in the basket. He's all using a lot of objects that like make you feel like you're down in those situations. So, for example, the first few stones are the worst. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The first few stones are the worst.
Yeah.
It's that kind of allusion to it. And yeah, totally. Like the first few times, it's not that bad when people say things to you or you feel a certain way about a certain situation, and then it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, and can we be honest here? And I sincerely hope there's no children listening to this because I'm going to lay down some truth.
Yeah.
Sticks and stones fucking hurt.
Yeah.
No. Yes, obviously
Yeah.
we know that. I just screwed up the metaphor. Words hurt. It does hurt.
Yeah.
Sticks and stones also obviously hurt when you're being thrown at you. I'm sorry.
And I'm circling the drain. Like you can physically feel yourself being pulled down a drain. And like he gets to that last line where he gets pulled down the fucking drain, and he finally says it, and it's this like just letting go of all the emotion in his voice and just kind of breaking down. You can hear that pain being released, and I think that's a really good dynamic part on Jake there to sing that.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Sorry, I noticed that on the annotation they're talking about circling the drain being a metaphor towards death, and I don't think it's always a metaphor towards death. I mean, you spiral into depression, so there's a like a drain
Exactly.
effect too. I mean, it all sort of goes towards that end.
And I think the specific annotation that you're talking about. So we're on Genius.com.
By the way,
and there are people annotate the lyrics and give their interpretations of it. And I think that the specific annotation that you're talking about towards the end, that part may be circling the drain towards death, where in the beginning he's just circling the drain as a downward spiral, where he's got all of his problems right here. But towards the end, it's just like, well, I just might as well give up anyway. I'm picking up what's left, and I'm ready to head out. So, anyways, a lot to unpack there. We unpacked a decent amount of lots sitting there. So our next song on this album is See Ya Sucker. And this one's got a really nice vibe. I've always really liked how this one felt. So let's give a quick listen to See Ya Sucker.
I reckon you grew up in a town that said reckon all the time, all your time so vile yet concrete. And I heard little rumors here and there, little peeps that you may never. I swear to God, if you never leave.
a town that said reckon all the time.
Yeah.
I like that. Nice little play on words at the end there.
This is an interesting sort of concept for a song, because obviously they had to leave their town and do their thing because they became who they were. So to leave someone behind in that sense, I think is maybe a very specific problem. But I think also, I mean, like, there are younger people that maybe are just townies and going into that dating scene or just like sort of thing where they want to get out and do their thing, and their significant other doesn't want to. And it's just an interesting concept for a song. I don't know how to analyze it because I haven't been through it myself necessarily.
And these guys are from Philly, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in Philly.
So you have something in common.
Yeah, I just actually jumped over to their wiki page to see if it mentioned like where they went to school. They're obviously considerably younger than me.
Yeah, they're probably late 20s, early 30s.
So
Just
a little
one, I
bit
guess.
younger than me, not
Yeah.
significantly.
Well, if we do the math, they graduated in 2011, so they were 20 in 2013. So, yeah, they'll be 30 in 2023. So that's like 27.
Chestnut Hill College.
So while Chris is divulging himself a little bit more into modern baseball, we're gonna take a listen to the next track, which is "Look Out," and this one I believe is relatively short. So let's take a listen to "Look Out."
Look out, I'm on a search for self-destruction, crawling over the great plains of my cell phone contacts just to find a pretty girl to take home late at night to hold my sweaty palms and stuff. Heads up because I'm always moving.
This is an interesting track. Short, but there's a lot going on.
Absolutely.
I like this image of the Great Plains of my cell phone contact. Like I get what he's saying with that. That's cool.
Yeah, crawling over the Great Plains of myself just to find a pretty girl to take home late at night to hold my sweaty palms and stuff. And that's really an insight into, like, you know, this is the broken person that, like, needs the help. And it's not only is he just looking for a pretty girl to just, like, have in his life for the fact that you need that attention. Like, he needs that person. That much.
Word of advice: when people leave your life, take them out of your contacts on your phone. Like, I speak from experience. I don't, but that's probably not a healthy thing to do.
So we're down to the last two tracks on this album. This next one's called Play Ball. I use emphasis because there's an exclamation point, and I want to be true to their intention. So let's play ball with modern baseball. See what I did there?
This compilation of sings and tunes means everything to me now. Oh, I cut me open, but you did all the pouring out. I discovered more and more of this world that I've been calling mine. And no, I don't care what it is.
All right. Before I ask this question, I want to state for the record that I'm a Generation X, not a boomer.
Yes.
But I got a total boomer question to ask.
Okay, boomer.
Is this what is considered emo?
Yeah, kinda. So this is
Not that easy a question to answer.
It's not that. I get defensive about it because there's emo that people think is emo, and like one of my favorite bands of all time is My Chemical Romance. I'm no person to hide that, and they are classically considered like one of the most emo bands of all time. But emo is just short for emotional, and this is somebody pouring their emotions out. So in my opinion, this would be emo, but it depends on who you ask.
So I listen to, I would say, a wide variety of music. Music that's in all sorts of different genres. And it's all emo.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you're writing a song.
Right.
Unless you're singing about the lemon dripping down your leg, which is a sloppy metaphor for something or other. It's all emotional.
Yeah, and I think the thing that they're trying to target when they use the term when people use the term emo, it's talking about how you feel about something, but like it's never going to get better. Or, like, this is the worst that it is, and it's just like it's the lowest of the low kind of feeling. And I think Brendan and Jake kind of experience that a lot and talk about like this is the lowest of the low I've ever felt, and that's emo they're talking about. Because you talk about love songs, and it's a form of being emotional, but it's like a positive emotional thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the line can be drawn. But yes, in to an extent, like I would 100% agree that just emo is just emotional.
I'm thinking for me it might be a connotation denotation situation where the connotation I have of emo is whiny. Like emo equals whiny, and I don't feel like this is whiny. Yeah,
it's more nasally, and it's kind of whiny in the sense it's. I think again, it comes down to a generational thing. I relate to a lot of the things that are happening here. A lot of people just say grow up and deal with it, and I think that's where you could say that it's emo and it's whiny.
Yeah, I could see that, but I think that's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta
talk through these things sometimes.
Speaking as someone who's a professional navel gazer, I spend like 60% of my time self-analyzing, so I'm probably not a good judge.
Well, we are on the last track called Coals, and Coals is a beautiful track in my opinion. I have a video of a friend of mine dancing to this song, and it's not really a danceable song, but dancing to it, and in the middle of a show we were at, they were just playing it over the speaker and stuff, so it was really funny. So let's take a listen to Coals.
Open doors and sweat-soaked floors.
Sometimes you find it hard to miss your family when every day you're part of one more. Just slow down, baby, take it all in, and I promise you will never be angry again after this. Kicked out of the liquor store.
So they ended on a high note.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the juxtaposition of with the first line being that they let the fire burn low, and then they let the fire burn high.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking
they'll never let it burn out. That is
Yeah.
the thing.
the first
Yeah.
thing was making me think of, and how many times have we stood around a campfire after we should have gone to bed
Yeah.
and throwing yet another log on and staring at the coals and just talking shit. Yeah, I really like that. And I feel, again, going back to the whole emo, whiny thing, like there's a lot of introspection in this
Yeah.
album, and obviously a lot of mental, I was going to say instability, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Mental strife.
Yeah.
But it ends on a high note. I'm all right, and I'm always getting better.
And I really like the line, the whole section here. They have, I spent the last $3 and the last thing that I'll need. There's no way I'll end up in the black for this term. I guess I got a lot to learn. They're taking whatever that specific example is as a lesson that this is something that they need to figure out. I shouldn't spend that money that I need to. But it's kind of capstone for the whole album of like, maybe all these things are happening and I need to learn from them. All
Yep.
these experiences that I've had. And I think that's a really good way of, alluding to the high note of like, this is a really good thing.
Yeah. And I can, speaking from experience, from looking back to my early 20s, you do have to learn, because if you don't learn the lesson, it will be taught to you repeatedly.
Until you figure it out.
Yes.
So what'd you think of sports?
I really enjoyed it. I feel like, so on one level, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it. It would be something that I would be inclined to listen to again. Sort of breaking it down like this, I think this is the most in-depth we've gone into anything that we've reviewed.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that experience. And I feel like we got to know you a little better.
Yeah, and I feel like with these types of albums, anything that specifically modern baseball does, if you don't go into depth and think about it a little bit, then you don't get what they're trying to get across. I learned a lot about myself by going in and trying to figure out what's going on, because I always like the music, but then you just have these lyrical themes with it that you want to understand because you're listening to it, and if you're going to spend the time, why not, right?
Yep.
And I learned a lot about myself trying to think through, like, oh yeah, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe this is something that other people feel too. How do they deal with it? And what do they talk about? And I learned a lot about myself listening to how these songs and this album was structured. So
Yeah. I don't think we learned a lot about either of ourselves when we listened to Jaws of the Shark.
no, I learned more that I didn't like that album. So, but that was Sports by Modern Baseball. I really encourage you to check it out. And if you've already check it out again with this kind of review of it in hand, and see if you take anything else away from it. So we're at the end of the episode again. But until next week, we'll be working on some new stuff to get out and more content. Chris, what's on the agenda for next week?
So, going back in a completely different direction, I came across this LP called A GI's Germany in Sound and Music. It's Germany as the American serviceman hears it and lives it, circa 1960. Complete with, and I'm just reading a brief description, the ever-changing sounds of modern Germany and the never-changing sounds of its bells, beer halls, cuckoo clocks, and cobblestone clattering honey wagons. I don't know what to make of this.
I can only imagine.
So that ought to be interesting, to say the least. But this was a great episode. I really enjoyed our time together tonight.
Yeah, and I feel like I learned more about an album I've been listening to for 3 years now, just by talking it through with you. And hopefully you guys take the chance to not only do this with this album maybe, but like try and do this with some of your own stuff. Sit there, really think about what the message is. I feel like you really look a lot into yourself when you do that.
I for one would really be interested in hearing some listener feedback on this particular episode.
Yes, definitely.
And I know we have had some discussions about at some point maybe having guests on. I would not be opposed to somebody bringing in an album that's, speaks to them and hearing their side of it, because I feel like I learned a lot tonight, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so check out our Facebook group and mention in there if maybe, you know what, I'd love to see some albums that you found interesting and that are important in your life. So, throw some of those in the group too. But yeah, throw your opinions, throw what you thought about this episode, albums that speak to you, songs that speak to you, whatever.
Talk to us.
Talk to us. We're lonely. We just have each other, and it's kind of annoying.
We crave feedback.
We do. So thank you for listening to another episode of Esoterica, the podcast. Please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, on our social platforms, our YouTube channel, which we need to put more content on at some point. You can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, hopefully Apple Podcasts by sometime this week, if not by the time this episode comes out. Am I missing anything?
We're also available on. I got to pull it up now because there's a few. We're on Breaker. We're on Google Podcasts and Radio Public.
And iHeartRadio.
And I just got an email yesterday that we're on TuneUp now. So in theory, Alexa should be able to find us. I have yet to test it at home, so you should be able to listen to us on your smart speakers.
Is it TuneUp or TuneIn? I think it's TuneIn.
It might be TuneIn, but I'm always in need of a tune-up. So.
So give us a shot. Keep listening to Esoterica, the podcast, if you like our stuff. If not, let us know too.
And we'll be dropping a new episode on you Wednesdays.
Wednesdays at midnight. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch up with you next week.
Good night and God bless.